rebound, Keldon Johnson. He won't even have to get it to half court. That's going to wrap it up. And the Warriors with a really big loss tonight against San Antonio. I know they didn't have Steph Curry or GP2, but the Warriors have a lot of talented players, and they lose to a team that came in winning only 13 all season. The Spurs outplayed them. They outfought them for most of the night and moved to their 126-113 win.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
Welcome to Warriors Live, y'all. I want to paint a picture for you. Before I even introduce myself, I want to paint a picture. A week ago, Warriors are playing the Milwaukee Bucks. They beat them 125-90. Most likely their best win of the season. Everyone is at a high, and you look at the schedule after that Bucks game, the Bulls and the Spurs twice. You're thinking this Warriors team can win 4 games in a row, get themselves in a really, really good spot in the standings as they try to chase that 6th seed and get out of the play-in round, and the vibes were at an all-time high. Since then, they lose to the lowly Chicago Bulls. In the process, Steph Curry sprains his ankle. Not ideal. Pretty much the worst case scenario. But he wakes up the next day, and you know what? The ankle isn't as bad as feared. Maybe miss 4 games at the most, probably. Maybe as little as 1 or 2. And the next 2, they're against the Spurs. You will regroup. Well, tonight was that first matchup with the Spurs, as we all know, and the Warriors went from a week ago having their best win of the season to now having their worst loss of the season. 126-113. The Warriors lose to the Spurs without their 2 top scorers and their 2 best players. Steph Curry didn't play, but that is not an excuse. They should have won this game. I'm Jason Dumas. Welcome to Warriors Live. If you want to hop on and rap with me, just give us a call, 888-957-9570. We can talk about this loss together. There's so many things to unpack, but man, I'm going to start with this. Without Steph Curry, this Warriors basketball team just doesn't look good. They're now 0-4 without Steph Curry this year, and Steph is, 36 years old now? He made a case tonight with 0 minutes played as the league's most valuable player. This team just was brutal. Offensively, they were stagnant. Outside of Klay Thompson, who had another brilliant game off the bench. But just the offense, when Steph is not creating that gravity, and you have Draymond and Pods and Kuminga out there, the Spurs were not respecting either. No, and all 3 of them were getting no respect defensively from the Spurs. Sagging off. There was no spacing. The offense couldn't score. I think, what did they have? How many points did they have in the first half? I think it was 40-something. It was brutal. They scored 27 points in the first quarter, 16 in the second. That's 37 plus 6. That's 43 points in the first half. I was pretty good at math. I can do basic addition. But look, 40-something points in a half in 2024, that's just terrible. You know, you have teams scoring 150 points a game nowadays. They had 40-something in the first half. That's how anemic that offense was. Trayce Jackson-Davis, who has looked so good over the past couple weeks, he struggled tonight. Brandon Podziemski, who has been great in his rookie season, he struggled tonight. And I know Brandon is as hard on himself as anyone with a microphone like me could be. I know he is extremely frustrated with himself. Chris Paul, I was really excited to see that 2-man game between Chris Paul and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Chris Paul laid an egg. I mean, they all laid an egg. I don't mean to single anyone out. You know, I'm just kind of going down the roster. I will say this. Jonathan Kuminga played well. He was hustling too. Even though Steve raised the red flag and said, okay, you know what? No more. He took out the starters. He took out Chris Paul. He took out Draymond Green. He sat down Klay Thompson. Jonathan Kuminga was out there still playing with effort, heart, hustle. And I know sometimes you can say, you know what? It just wasn't their night. You know, everyone has an off night. Spurs shot 50% from deep. They're one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA, but they just shot the lights off tonight. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that's true. But Warriors don't get that excuse. Not tonight. Not in the situation they're in. They're now on a 2-game losing streak with 2 of those losses being to 2 of the worst teams in the NBA. Yeah, I know Chicago is in the play-in round in the Eastern Conference, and they've been playing better basketball post-trade deadline, all-star break-ish time of the year. But from the grand scheme of it, they're not a great team. They're not a team you should lose to if you're trying to position yourself for a postseason run. Hell no. So just wasn't great for the Warriors. And look, we got to be honest with ourselves, you know? Can't be disingenuous. And, you know, I think the first part of living a successful life is being transparent and honest with yourself, self-reflection. Maybe this Warriors team just is not as good as they're not as good as we all think they are or think they could be. Because I'll say this Warriors team, the season can be described as potential. We're always talking about what they can be. If this person's healthy, if that person's healthy, if this rolled this way, this rolled that way. Right now, they're just not a great team. They are who their record is, 33-30. Yeah, they can beat a team like the Bucks. Yeah, they can beat a team like the Boston Celtics. Remember, earlier in the season, they beat the Celtics at Chase Center. That was an amazing game. Steph Curry played phenomenally. Chris Paul had that crazy assist to Steph, hit the 3. But then also later in the season, they lose to the Celtics by 52 points. They were down by 56 at one point. I didn't even know that was possible, to be losing to a team by 56 points. I kept scratching my eyes looking at the score, thinking I was maybe still working off a buzz. No, it was real. That's who this Warriors team is. They can beat anybody. They can lose to anybody. They play down to their competition. More times than not, they're going to lose to the better teams in the league. I don't know what the official stat is right now, but a couple weeks ago, because I read it over on TV on Cron 4, a couple weeks ago, the Warriors were 3-18 against teams with a 50-win pace. Obviously, that's an ever-changing stat because it's just about teams that are on pace to win 50 games in a season. Don't know the exact number now. Someone on the text line can follow it up. That would be great. But man, oh man, just what a buzzkill of a loss. This is a Saturday night. We're supposed to be riding around the Bay Area, having fun, vibing. But the Warriors, they were a buzzkill tonight. You know, it's just tough without Steph Curry, but you should still get that win. And shoot, by the end of the game, we're watching Guy Santos, Lester Quinones, and Pat Spencer. I love all 3 of those guys. I'm the sideline reporter for the Santa Cruz Warriors. So I'm extremely familiar with all 3, have a great relationship with all 3. But you only want to see those 3 at a game with the Golden State Warriors when the team is winning by a lot. They were in because Steve Kerr called it quits. And guess what? Pat Spencer, Lester Quinones, and Guy Santos, not Lester. Lester's a full-time Warriors player right now. But most likely Pat Spencer and Guy Santos, they're going to be playing at Chase Center again tomorrow at 12:30 when the Santa Cruz Warriors play. At least they got some warm-up time. But, man, what a mess that was. I see we already have someone on the call line. Let's go to Mark in Millbrae. Mark, vent to me, brother.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I was at the Milwaukee game. Talk about highs and highs and lows and lows. I understand Curry's out, but you're playing an awful team who didn't have Wembanyama, and to make the Spurs look as good as they did tonight, inexcusable. I don't care if Curry didn't play tonight. Even if he didn't play tonight, this is a team at home they should bury by 20. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on with this team at home all year. I mean, it's one of the most bizarre seasons. Last year, they couldn't beat anybody on the road, and they've been dominant at home like year after year. This year, they're fantastic on the road, and they're embarrassing at home. This is a team, like even Chicago. I know Chicago is playing better basketball, and they're a team with guys that can get hot like DeRozan. But still, that even with Curry went out at that time, that's a game you got to win as well. So you're losing to these bad teams, and why they're finding themselves in this position while they're now in the 10 seed. When you look, make Keldon Johnson and guys like Sohan look like
Champagny
studs, and exactly. So outside of Kuminga, really, I mean, everybody knows what I guess Clay off the bench there, but overall it was just lackluster, and you really let the Spurs dictate the game plan. So this is just as bad as it gets. When you look at the schedule here, this was a stretch where the Warriors could have really gotten ahead of the Lakers, because you don't want to be the 10 seed. At this point, with the way they're going, they're maybe probably going to be in the 10th seed, and we don't know if, Lakers give them a lot of trouble, so there's no guarantee they can win in LA. I just hope the Warriors get this turned around, man, because this is bad right now. Plus, because the schedule is only going to get harder. You get San Antonio one more time, and then the stretch run picks up with a couple tough matchups here. So these guys got to wear this tonight, losing to an awful team they have no business losing to. And I hope Kerr really chews these guys up and gets them rolling here before it's too late, guys, because I don't think if they're in the 10 seed, they're going to make a run. You have to get to minimum 8 seed. Hey, I want to get your opinion on it. Do you think they can win 2 games on the road if there's a 10 seed? Because I don't see it, even though as good as they've been on the road all season, playing 2 legit teams, in a playing tournament. What are your thoughts on that? Or do you think I'm wrong and can make a run and get a playoff seed from the 10 seed?
Thanks for the call, Mark. Do I think they can win 2 road games as the 10 seed in that play-in round? Yes, they can. Would I bet my hard-earned money on it? Hell no. They just haven't shown they can have any semblance of consistency this season. Even though they're playing much better road basketball than home basketball this year, as weird as that is, they're 17-17 at Chase Center. But you're right, Mark. That was a great call. He made like 3 or 4 different really good points. Right now, they would have to play the Lakers, possibly. That's a really tough team. They match up horribly with the Lakers. They've matched up poorly with the Lakers for the last 3 years now. Anthony Davis gives them fits. D'Angelo Russell, who's playing the best basketball of his career right now, possibly, but whenever he plays the Warriors, he's always playing the best basketball of his career. The man doesn't miss against the Warriors. Thank God they don't have Lonnie Walker anymore. Remember that last year? But shoot, I wouldn't favor them against the Lakers. I was at every game last year in that playoff series at Staples Center, at the Crypto.com arena. I'm sorry. Rest in peace, Staples. But that's just a poor matchup with them. And the thing with me is they had it in front of them. They still do. Not, the season ain't over. They could, rip off a 4-game win streak and kind of get right back to it. But you had it right in front of you. Bulls, Spurs, 2 extremely beatable teams. You got to take care of business against those type of teams when you are in the position you are in. All we said during the All-Star break was, look, the Warriors are through the toughest part of their schedule. I was one of those people saying it because it's true, They had a brutal first half schedule. Now, the scheduling gods were doing them a favor. We're looking at the schedule. We're like, you know what? The Warriors can go on a run in the second half. Chicago, San Antonio. We already marked those 2 off at losses. San Antonio on Monday is a must-win game. Then they have a couple tough ones. At Dallas, tough game. Dallas is a couple spots above them in the standings. Always a tough game to play in Dallas. Luka's playing out of his mind. at the Lakers. I digress. We already talked about the Lakers in that matchup issue. New York Knicks at Chase Center. I'll probably be at that game. The Knicks are going to want payback. Warriors just got one of their best wins of the season at Madison Square Garden. That was the team that had everyone believing that this team can make a run. Ain't a chance they're going to lose to the San Antonio Spurs if you ask me after that game against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. No way. But yeah, guess what? And then after New York, they got Memphis. Should win that one. But we're saying the Spurs loss is the worst of the season. They lost to Memphis earlier this year. It was basically Memphis' G League team. There was no Ja Morant. There's no Desmond Bane. I think the only good player that played was the big guy from Michigan State. So shoot. Memphis ain't even a must win. And then it's Indiana, Minnesota, Miami. It's look, the Warriors will probably beat a lot of those teams that I just mentioned, a lot of those good teams, because that's what they do. They play up to their competition. But then you know what? You got like Charlotte in there. You got Houston in there. And those are the games that you just, as a fan at least, not as a player, as a fan, those are the games where you just want to, all right, check, they got that. Ain't no way. Can't do that with this team. You just can't do that with this team. And, I'll say this too. They lacked energy tonight. And part of that is because of Steph Curry. Obviously, Steph is such a high-octane player on offense. I guess they just look sluggish without him. But also know whose energy they missed? GP2. GP2 is that utility player. He is going to get that block, chase it down. He's going to get that loose ball. He's going to make that steal, play the passing lane. He's going to guard 90 feet from the basket, kind of speed up the game a little bit. They missed that wrinkle of the game. They need more of that from Pods. But Pods and Trace, man, they're learning on the job. They've played, 60-something games now? They played two college basketball seasons, essentially. Pods only played really one season. He started at Illinois, but he didn't play. That was that Illinois team that won 30-something games. Tracy's played 4 college basketball seasons, but he's never played 60 straight games or whatever this is. It's NBA. It's a little different for guys like them. So I'm not going to put all this loss on young guys. Not when they got Draymond Green playing. Not when they have Chris Paul playing. It's just, look, man, I don't want to sound like the sky is falling, doom or gloom and all of that stuff. I'm trying to be realistic and just set the scene. But how positive can you be? How optimistic can you be coming off one of the worst losses of the season? I want to say it's the worst loss, but it really might not be, which is scary. Because like I said, I just mentioned that Memphis game. That was on a Sunday, I believe. It was either on a Saturday or a Sunday. And yeah, it was a brutal loss. I was driving home from Santa Cruz because I had just done a Santa Cruz game. So I was listening to it. You know what? It was on a Monday. It was on Martin Luther King Day. I remember. They lost to the Memphis Grizzlies on Martin Luther King Day. They were down in Memphis. Yeah, that was a brutal loss. So where do they go from here? Steph's probably not going to play again on Monday. I'm curious to whether Steve Kerr makes a change in the starting lineup just while Steph is out. I think hindsight's 2020. This didn't hit me when Steve was doing it. And I'm not one of those guys who act like I'm smarter than Steve Kerr. I'm not one of those guys who acts like I'm a coach. I watch a lot of basketball. Basketball was my first love, but Steve Kerr is a basketball savant. Look at his resume. I don't know more than him. I'm not going to really question him. I'll have my own opinions and whatnot. But hindsight is 2020 for me. I didn't think of this at the time, but Clay should have started this game. The spacing was terrible on the floor. Obviously, Warriors scoring 40-something points in the first half. It was just an anemic offense. They needed some of Klay's gravity. Clay was the only player outside of Guy Santos who only played how many minutes did Guy Santos play? Guy only played, 6 minutes. Outside of Guy Santos, Clay was the only one with a positive plus-minus. He had a plus-minus of 2. Guy Santos had a plus-minus of 1. Everybody else was in the negative. But Clay played well. And I think, like I said, hindsight is 20/20, but also at the same time, I'm not the highest paid coach in the NBA, so maybe Steve shouldn't have as much hindsight as I have. He should probably have some foresight in these situations, but Clay probably should have started that game. They just looked lost offensively without Steph Curry. And if you're Steph, you watch this. I didn't even see Steph on the bench. Sterling, did you see Steph on the bench? No. I didn't even see Steph on the bench. They, sprained ankle. They probably told him to be home and have his ankle elevated. Sometimes with certain injuries, they don't want those guys on the bench. They don't want them sitting for 2 hours in the same position. Steph is probably up, foot on an ottoman, watching this game. Probably had 2 or 3 glasses of Gentleman Cut, his bourbon. Maybe an extra after that effort he watched. He's probably home he's in Atherton with the ankle elevated. But yeah, man. Andrew Wiggins. I know he had 11 points. You look at his box score, 5 for 12, 11 points. I mean, that's who Andrew Wiggins is lately, It's almost surreal to think he was one of the main reasons they won an NBA championship. I think it's fair to say he was the second best player on the team the season they won the NBA championship. Typically, Draymond takes that title, but Draymond wasn't even starting by the end of that Boston series. He really struggled. Draymond kind of struggled most of that postseason, which is cool, It is what it is. Andrew Wiggins was next level for them. Now, you got to wonder if Steve Kerr has lost a little trust in Andrew Wiggins. I know publicly, they said all the right things. Andrew was out for personal reasons. We're all praying that it's nothing serious. But, the organization was okay with it. But since he's come back, he hasn't really played. Hasn't really played much. And tonight, like I said, I don't want to pick on 1 or 2 people because it was a team effort stinker. It wasn't just one person, but Andrew was just going through the motions, it looked like to me, But that's not a one-off. We say that way too often. Andrew is uber talented. You just expect more out of him. He's been in the league long enough. We know who he is. We know what he's capable of. But you can't, you got to get more out of Andrew Wiggins. You just have to get more. One thing about Moses Moody, who had his worst game in a while, 2 for 11, you never question Moses Moody's effort. The execution from the team was terrible today. The offense was just awful. I think that was their biggest issue, the offense. Spurs shooting 50% from deep. You're not going to see that very often. It is what it is. They were a hot shooting team tonight. But at least with Moses Moody, you never question his effort. With Wiggins, I question his effort at times. I do. Maybe that's fair. Maybe that's unfair. We will see. All right, we got another caller. Skills from Vallejo. Talk to me, brother.
Hey, good evening, Jason. Good to be on with you. This loss is confusing, and I'm not going to make excuses for what went down. This is a team that lost by almost 60 to Boston last weekend with Curry, then beats Milwaukee by 36 or 35, whatever it was, and now they're losing to the Spurs down their 2 biggest scorers. And really, the only 2 people on the team I ever heard of besides Keldon Johnson, And it just doesn't make sense. The third worst team in the league, one of the worst defensive teams in the league, comes in your building and stomps you. And as great as Curry is, and he's unbelievably great, top 10 ever, he should not be the difference between losing to a team as sorry as the Spurs, especially when you're at home. And the one last point I'll make before I go, because if you let me go on, I'll probably ramble on for 10 minutes. So I'll just make one more point here before I go. Yeah, it's that bad. Honestly, I don't know what's worse, the loss to Boston or the loss tonight. They both sting in different ways. They're both unacceptable in different ways. But what are you going to, you have all these star players, all these high-paid players, and they're just getting, it was like the Tim Duncan era all over again tonight is what it was like to me when the Spurs used to just stomp us every night, every time they played us. But anyway, good night. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Skills. Should ask Skills where he got that name from, how to get that nickname. What is he skilled at? That was a great call, though. Look, if the season ended today, the Warriors are in the 10th spot. They would have to go to Los Angeles, play at Crypto.com Arena with their season on the line. How confident would you be for the Warriors to go into Los Angeles and beat LeBron James and Anthony Davis in a single elimination game on the road? Granted, they're great on the road this year. Great might be overstating it, but they're a good road team. Warriors they're better on the road than they've been at home. So I guess the road aspect doesn't matter as much. But just simply from a matchup point of view, I wouldn't be confident. How could I be confident? The Lakers just always beat them. Lakers always beat them. Aside from a couple weeks ago, that was a great game at Chase Center. But I don't think LeBron James didn't play, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was like the first game after the All-Star break. LeBron James didn't play, ankle injury. So, shoot. And if they're lucky enough to beat the Lakers in a play-in game, then they would have to play the loser of the 7 or 8 game. And the 7 or 8, who is in 7th and 8th? There are two other good teams. I think it's Sacramento and Dallas. Now, that would be great if it was Sacramento because the Warriors would beat Sacramento. That's just the little brother. We'll never respect the Kings. We respect Mike Brown. Not sure we respect the Kings though. They gotta win something significant, or at least beat the Warriors in something significant to get that respect. We respect them as players, but as a team organization, that's little bro. That's little bro. But yeah, this is just one of those nights, man. You think the night is going to go differently. I saw people leaving Chase Center right around the time that Steve Kerr pulled out Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Chris Paul. But how can you blame them? I've never been the one to blame people who leave games early. I know every fan feels differently about that. But look, if you pay your hard-earned money, you can do what you want. You know what I mean? Especially with traffic nowadays, especially with especially if you're at a football game, you're down at Levi's, you gotta beat that traffic out that parking lot. So I saw a bunch of Warriors fans leaving early. It is what it is. I don't blame them at all. Right now, the Warriors are in the 10th spot. They would have to play the Lakers in the play-in round, and that just wouldn't be great. But you know what? Somebody has to get an award. What's on Tap? Brought to you by Farmers Brewing. What's on Tap? Brought to you by Farmers Brewing. Have you tried Farmers Brewing yet? If not, you know what? It's the wrong read. We're doing the hardest worker of the game. Brought to you by Alameda County Sheriff's Office. Who works hard to serve the community? Are you looking for a career in law enforcement? Learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. That's the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. Who do you think was the hardest worker of the game? I'm going to go with Klay Thompson. He did his part. We know it's been an emotional roller coaster for Klay this year, being relegated to the bench. All he did was come out in 25 minutes, go 8 for 16, knock down 5 trays, score 27 points. He did his job. He did what he had to do. Like I said, he probably should have started. But, it is what it is. The Warriors made Julian Champagnie look like Paul George. Julian averages 6 points per game. He scored 17, had 7 and 5 assists. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect Julian. He's a New York City guy, went to St. John's. Tough player. But nah, you can't let him score 17 points on you. You just can't. You just can't, Keldon Johnson. Keldon is a good player. Can't hate on him. I said that during the pregame Warriors live show. Keldon, 22 and 11. He was all over the place for this Warriors team. Look, the Warriors got to find a way to win without Steph Curry. I know you never want to be playing without Steph Curry. You shouldn't want to get used to playing without Steph Curry. And this injury is not believed to be a serious one. But injuries happen. And I doubt Steph is going to play on Monday. Highly doubt it. He'll make the trip because they go from San Antonio to Dallas. They do that little Texas triangle minus the Houston leg of it. He's probably going to want to get back when they go to Dallas. He's definitely want to be playing against the Lakers in LA. That's a primetime game Saturday night, downtown Los Angeles. Steph wants to be out there for that one. So I would guess the Warriors have 2 more games without Steph Curry. Right now, they are 0-4 without Steph. Monday is a must-win. The Spurs are getting Wemby back on Monday. And even though the Spurs are bad, they have been playing better basketball. Granted, the standard is extremely low. You can't play much worse. So when I say they've been playing better, take it with a grain of salt. But they completely blew the game on Thursday in Sacramento. They were winning for most of that game. Ended up losing by 2 points to the Kings. And they redeemed themselves tonight in Golden State. It's so weird how the schedule falls. They're playing them again in 2 days. I don't like that, but the Warriors probably want a crack at them tomorrow or on Monday. Probably want another crack on them. They should just share a plane back down to San Antonio. Save the environment a little bit. Somewhat joking, partly joking. But man, these guys, they got to just look themselves in the face. Who are we? And the Warriors, they'll bounce back. They got a lot of guys with pride. I'm not concerned with them bouncing back and getting a win on Monday. It's more so these are games they needed to win to get out of that play-in round. The play-in round is so dangerous, especially if you're the 9 or 10 seed. More specifically, if you're the 10 seed. They won't get a home game. They will not get a home game in the play-in round. If they're fortunate enough to beat the number 9 team, if they're the number 10, most likely will be the Lakers. If they're fortunate enough to beat the Lakers at Crypto.com, they're going to have to go to either Sacramento or Dallas and win a must-win game. And get this, they'll have to do all that just to go play the Thunder, the Timberwolves, or the Nuggets in the first round. That is an extremely tall order. So you see how important it is to get out of that play-in round. If you're lucky enough to beat the Lakers on the road and then beat the Dallas Mavericks on the road or the Sacramento Kings on the road, if you're lucky enough to win those 2 road games, Either the Thunder, Timberwolves, or Denver Nuggets are waiting for you next. That is a tall order. If you're able to get to the 6th seed, you're going to play a team like the Clippers or the Nuggets or the Timberwolves still in the first round, but at least it's a series. At least it's a 7-game series. It's not some 1-game elimination setting. And, the Clippers, they're led by James Harden. You give yourself a fighter's chance. Any Harden-led playoff team, you know how that story ends. But if you get stuck in this play-in tournament, shoot, we have evidence. You all remember what happened in the play-in tournament? What was that, 3 years ago? Game 1, they lose to the Lakers in L.A. Then they come back home, and I'll never forget because that second play-in game was at home at Chase Center against the Memphis Grizzlies. It was on the same night the San Francisco Giants were playing the Dodgers. Game 5. That was an all-time awful night. I am sorry I'm bringing that up. I literally just thought of it in real time. The last time the Warriors played in the play-in round, they lost to the Lakers. Then they got a home game. They were the 8 seed. Lakers were the 7. They lost to the Lakers at Staples. They come back and they get to play the Memphis Grizzlies, who are either 9 or 10, at home. They lose to a young Ja Morant, season over, at home. Not even an hour later, the Giants lose to the Dodgers, Game 5. I was at that game, the Giants game. I remember it all too well. That was an all-time bad night in Bay Area sports. Man, oh man, oh man. So I say that to hammer home the point. You do not want to play in round. It is just not, it would not be good for the Warriors. They need to find a way to get out of that play-in round. And games against the Spurs are the games you use to make up ground. The games against the Bulls are the games you use to make up ground. Man, it was a tough one tonight, y'all. It was a tough one tonight. Who needs to step up on Monday? Klay Thompson's already doing it. Klay Thompson is already doing it. I need a big day from Chris Paul. I know the Warriors play different basketball without Steph, but you acquired Chris Paul for a reason. Chris Paul needs to assert himself. I know he's old, but he is still extremely talented and still one of the most skilled players in the NBA when it comes to point guard play, pure point guard play. So something's got to give. Now, look, I know I brought up that awful, awful Saturday night 3 years ago. I don't want to leave y'all at that. I don't want to leave y'all like that on a Saturday night. I don't want you guys to drown your sorrows out. You know what I want you to think about? I want you to think about 2 years ago when the Warriors won an NBA championship and Andrew Wiggins was locked in. They need to get that Andrew Wiggins back. There is somewhere within Andrew that player. There is someone, it is somewhere down there. That's where we need to put our energy. I'm going to leave you with that good mojo. Go watch Game 6 highlights on YouTube. That always, always brings me joy. Game 6, June 14th, Boston Garden. Shut up all those obnoxious Boston fans. Go look at those highlights. And hey, we'll prep for Monday in San Antonio. They'll turn this thing around. I'm Jason Dumas. Thanks for tuning in to Warriors Live. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night.
We gotta go beat San Antonio.
This March, Wendy's is fueling the madness with amazing deals on their hamburgers made with fresh, never frozen beef.
Like a Juicy Dave single for